today.
You tired today?
Yeah, I'm officially doing this podcast asleep. For I'm tired.
Look, we've all been there. We've all had, recordings that we're technically there for, but, they're more in practice than in reality.
It's like every episode of this show I've been on. Hey!
I'm pretty sure that this podcast is taking place inside a dream I'm having while in a coma, like that TV show that was on when I was a kid that I can never remember the name of.
Saint Elsewhere.
But no, I think the word Odyssey was in the title. And it was some sort of drama starring teenagers.
Well, that's famously the end of Saint Elsewhere, is that this kid wakes up and the whole show was him having a coma. So
no, this was the explicit conceit of the show, not like a twist or an ending. The show was kid in a coma, adventures in some other, possibly another world.
Is this an early 90s TV show? Because it might just be called The Odyssey.
Everything I remember
from 1992 to 94?
Everything I remember is an early 90s TV show. And I believe you're correct. I believe it is The Odyssey.
I'm looking at it now. Following an accident, young Jay Ziegler falls into a coma while his family and friends must continue their lives in the real world. Jay finds himself in the magical Down World on a quest to return home.
It's fucking Down World, mate.
It's got a real, Mad Max-esque...
Yes, I vaguely recall that.
It's Mad Max meets, the 80s Mario movie in its aesthetic. There's some fascinating stuff going on here.
Actually, the Mario to which you refer, the live action, is actually 93?
Yep,
92?
Yeah.
So, I guess...
I
mean, that was very much the style of things at the time, I suppose.
Yeah.
So very reflective. Yeah, it's just The Odyssey, you're right. I've only got, the vaguest memories on the periphery. Vague costumes in my mind that, like you say, quite Mad Maxy, very Road Warrior.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I remember some feathers.
My thing I was going to bring to the start of the episode this week, because I can't let the people doing this get away with it, and I have to use the platform I have to talk about it. Disney's trying to retcon jizz music.
Yes, this is very
a point of serious
important.
passion for you, yeah.
This is a very serious passion point for me. For anyone who doesn't know, there's a band that plays music in the original set of Star Wars films, and the music is called jizz music. Mm-hmm. And the person who plays one of the instrument's called a jizz wailer.
If I may.
Okay, yeah.
The band is called Figrin Dan and the Modal Notes.
Yep.
I had 3 books as a kid, all about, Star Wars' Underworld, Cantina, Jabba's Palace, and the Bounty Hunters. But sorry, do carry on. I love those books.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of jizz music. It is a cultural element of the Star Wars universe, and in a recent redone novelization of the original trilogy, they've renamed it Jats music.
Yeah.
They're trying to pretend they never made it jizz.
It's fucking shocking. I grew up with jizz in my ears. Right? That's what that means to me. Right?
You can't take away my jizz.
You can't free the jizz. I think if this podcast, when it was set up in 2014, if this podcast has ever been about anything, and it's always been the theme of this show, it's free the jizz.
We talk on this show a lot about, the kinds of gaming fans that will go, oh, you can't change anything from the creator's original vision.
Yeah, where are they now?
Yeah.
Where are they now? Where are those armies loudly demanding we return the jizz music to Star Wars?
Gather ye, band of bastards, and fight for the jizz. I mean, for God's sake, I have always sort of found it cringe when fans, especially Star Wars fans, they're some of the worst fucking fandoms in the world. But that phrase, you killed my childhood, that's often an incorrect thing because the stuff you liked is still there. There is stuff I don't like. I don't like how Alien Covenant, fucked the Xenomorphs narratively. by giving them an explanation when they never need. It does fucking annoy me, but I can't say it killed my childhood, because my childhood, well, first of all, my parents did that, but the Aliens films are still there. But this killed my childhood and jizzed on the corpse.
This is the only time that phrase has ever been correctly used, and I will die on that hill.
Absolutely.
Bring back the jizz.
It's infantile on their part. Like, I know that it's infantile to laugh at it and go, jizz. But, like, all they've done is draw attention to it, and everyone had accepted it.
All you've done is validate that it wasn't just jizz music, it was jizz music.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point.
You know, it could have just been a little space word. But now that you've changed it, it's like, oh, you've changed it because that music was about spunk.
Disney, in trying to retcon jizz music, has actually confirmed and canonized jizz music because they've confirmed that it's spunk. They've confirmed that it's spunky listening. Yeah. That's what it is, for fuck's sake. I find that just sad. Like, again, stuff that I have a problem with fandoms is accusations of puritanism, because most of the time it means just respecting people's human rights and dignity. And people say, oh, political correctness gone mad and all of that. But no, like, this is modern puritanism. And by that, I mean this is corporate sanitization that is so desperate to make everything universally appealing and capture as big an audience share as possible, that they go to extreme lengths and basically they're scrubbing at a painting till you can only see canvas underneath. It is an extreme form of sanitization that quite genuinely alarms me. It's jizz. I'm going to start calling them Jizney.
Welcome to Podquisition.
Welcome to
It's a video game
Podquisition.
show. We talk about video games.
I do want to just complain that I have been awake for 36 hours. That was how my week started. And
That's
then I got a little
mean.
bit of a kick.
It's very mean.
And then I was up till 4 a.m. yesterday because my brain won't shut up. Being neurodivergent is literally tiring.
That it is.
Literally physically tiring.
That it is. So, we're going to kick off with you talking about games today, and if you need to go have a nap at some point in the show, we understand how it is.
Probably going to peel off about halfway through, but I am here until then. And I'll kick off with sort of the main game that had my attention this week, and I know you've been playing it as well, Laura.
Yeah.
It's been on my radar for a while. I downloaded the demo, but the demo disappeared before I got round to it. So I have played a game called Paso Elsewhere. I mentioned it on the Jimquisition this past week. It is... I finished it, all 50 fucking levels of it. And basically what it is it's Max Payne. That's what it is, sort of. Mechanically, they have just lifted everything from Max Payne. The story is different. You are a painkiller addict who is descending into the depths of possibly hell to stop his ex-girlfriend from destroying the world because she's a vampire. The conceit, as an elevator pitch, I fucking love that. As a game, it is very repetitive and fucking janky. As a story, it is engrossing. As a showcase of the main voice actor, it's terrific. The guy playing James is incredible, I think. And the themes it touches on are themes that are quite meaningful to me. You know, I'm a chronic pain sufferer. I am on codeine every day and have had struggles with that because even if you need it, an addictive substance is an addictive substance. And I've had to be very careful about my relationship with that. And what they've done in El Paso Elsewhere is they've not really fucked that up. It's it's presented sort of matter-of-factly because it's coming from a guy who knows what he is. There's this wonderful moment where, near the beginning, where he's talking in sort of... There's a very Max Payne delivery, a very noir feel to what he's saying. And he starts talking about this seemingly hypothetical drug addict and then just looks at the camera and says, "Hi, I'm the drug addict, by the way." And it's just such a wonderfully delivered line. And the things he talks about his feelings towards himself as he falls off the wagon, and at least from his point of view, because they are healing items and are clearly significant in this sort of realities and in this void, the idea of falling off the wagon to an addictive substance that is nonetheless necessary is, again, very personally poignant. And then there's the other theme of abusive relationships, emotional abuse. The character is an abuse survivor, makes a point, and this is what I really like about this, is it makes the point that his ex never hit him. Because when abuse is portrayed in media, and we've talked about this before, when abuse is portrayed in media, it's always the most extreme version. It's always the violent, the sensational. You know, they turn it up as much as possible. And that is, as I have said on this show in the past, something that made it very difficult to come to terms with an abusive ex I had, in that I was never hit, so in my mind, it wasn't abuse. But this game straight up fucking points out that you can be traumatized to fuck by someone who is just so controlling, and someone who makes you so desperate for their approval that it is very genuinely an abusive situation. There's some audio that plays at various points, like audio recordings. There is a moment where Dracula, the ex, is, and I guess this is sort of spoilery. It's not really any revelations, but just to be forewarned, there is a sound, an audio file of her smashing plates and telling James that he's doing it. And I was disturbed after listening to that, and not because the game did anything wrong. So yeah, I have some problems with it as a game, but because of the story hooks and because of the performances, I went through all 50 levels, and then I heard the end credit music, and it just hit.
Yeah.
It just hit.
Before we get onto it as a game, I don't have a huge amount to add to what you've said there. I think you put a lot of that very well. The main thing I want to sort of add, I think, is this is one of the better games I've played in a long time in terms of trying to use gameplay mechanics to reinforce narrative in a way that doesn't feel like an overly forced metaphor. It feels just very simply and smartly done, and like it is consistently and effortlessly reinforcing itself. That interplay between the relationship with falling off the wagon and the mechanical utility of healing items, it doesn't make more of a point of it than it needs to, but it is made clear enough that it is constantly in the back of your mind. And I really want to emphasize how well they had one gameplay plus narrative link they made, and they didn't muddy it at all, and it stays pretty damn clear.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that is a hard line to walk.
Oh, yeah, it is something that could so easily go wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
on a surface level, at just hearing the description, you play a painkiller addict and you heal by downing bottles of painkillers. Like,
Yeah.
surface level of that, it fucking sounds awful and tasteless. But because the character is, before they get to painkillers as a healing item, they have already portrayed, like, demonstrated a very sympathetic portrayal where this guy is not saying what he's doing is right, but he is a victim of it.
It is unfortunately the situation he is in, whether it's the situation he wants to be in or not.
Yes.
And yeah.
The scenes that you get, not the flashbacky like audio, but the scenes you get between James and Draculaea are so well done in terms of the lack of animosity. The fact that he's there to kill her and she fucking did such a number on him. And they still love each other. And when they talk, it's so sad. There's not angry. Like, there's even a point where, like, he's talking about how, like, hard it is because he's not angry. And again, stuff that hits home to me on a personal level, this sort of feeling hurt, but not hating the person that hurt you. They did great. It's just a shame that you could take 50% of the levels out and lose nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, it's Max Payne, and it is the first level of Max Payne over and over again, for the most part. As you play, after a long time of playing, you get a second enemy. And then there's a drip feed of them. And admittedly, the levels do open up. I'm talking to a friend of mine, Olivia, at the moment, and she's talking about how the bullet time mechanics that were the kind of foundation of Max Payne aren't getting a chance to shine because the game is all tight corridors and enemies don't have guns, for a mechanic that was built around gunfire. Now, the game does open up. It takes up many levels, but it does eventually stop being motel room corridors. And there are some wonderful, like, visuals in terms of colour. Lovely, like, garish colours that remind me of, like, what was the Western game that we played last year?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, man, it was something West.
Yes. And now I'm running through the 6 or 7 different game titles involving West that have released in the last, 2 years.
But it's like that. Lots of...
Was it Weird West?
Weird West was a Devolver Digital...
No. Yeah, that was the other one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think through the... There's a lot of games that had West in the title that we played.
But the Western action game where you fight vampires. That was a good game. But yeah, I'm reminded of the sort of colour contrast. The kind of thing that you, like, was in the movie Creepshow. The harsh reds and greens clashing. And there's lots of other sort of... Evil West.
Evil
that's
West.
It. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Got there in the end.
Got there, yeah. So yeah, the levels do open up, and there are some really sort of cool stages once you get out of the motel. But by the end of the game, I was sort of surprised it was still going, because eventually the enemies do stop, like, new ones do stop appearing, and there is only a handful of them, and most of them go down in a couple shots, so you're fighting them the same way, And I didn't even feel a need most of the time to use the slowing down, to use the bullet time. Only occasionally, fittingly enough, for the handful of ranged enemies, the little sort of ghosty brides that teleport and throw balls at you. But for the most part, I was getting on just fine. And what you have in terms of gameplay is a third-person shooter ripped straight from the early years of the PlayStation 2 with none of the refinements, but keeps it simple enough to where I'm not super annoyed by that. But there is no variety to that gameplay. You spawn in a level, you run around it freeing hostages, like prisoners, then make it back to the elevator that dropped you off into the level. And that's almost entirely it. Sometimes you just go to an elevator without freeing the finding innocence, but for the most part, that's it. Couple of bosses later on. And it is very buggy as well. The physics are already wonky, but like whole bits of the stage flickering in and out of existence. I don't know if you've seen any of that, Laura.
I have indeed.
The floor will go, the walls will go. They're all still there, but they're invisible, and that extends to the enemies, which is the last fucking thing you want.
The main way I would talk about this game's gameplay, I think, is that it's not bad to play.
No.
But if the narrative wasn't there, I wouldn't keep playing for the gameplay.
Yes, that is perfect.
The gameplay is serviceable enough that it is not a bad way to spend time between the narrative, but without the narrative, the gameplay would not stand on its own.
Yes, the gameplay is a narrative delivery vehicle.
Yes.
It is functional. That is all I could say about it, is it is functional. And like you say, not unpleasant to play. It is fine.
It's a bit repetitive, and it takes a while to do anything new with the gameplay it has on hand, and it doesn't feel like there's like a narrative reason that has to be the case. It just kind of is, but it's okay. The narrative is strong enough to carry it.
I loved finishing a level because I'd get a cutscene, because I'd get some dialogue, because I'd hear James talk. I just love hearing him talk. I am so blown away by the vocal performance and the sharp writing.
Yeah. But both the writing and the narrative delivery are so well matched together. They are an absolute treat. Cannot overstate how much they make any problems this game have kind of unimportant.
Yeah.
In the big picture.
I'm going to be reviewing it. I don't know what I'm going to give it, because I never do till I write what I've written and then match that tonally with a score. But it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be similar to the Puppet Combo games I've been playing, like Night at the Gates of Hell, where there is something about it that I couldn't recommend to a lot of people. But for a certain niche, absolutely. Also, another thing I need to say while I remember, the fucking soundtrack. The fucking music. Those levels, like that's when I'm engrossed in the gameplay, are the levels where a rap soundtrack, like a rap song plays, and it's usually James doing it, or at least it sounds like it. And as it starts, you think you're hearing voiceover dialogue, because he talks frequently through the game. And then then a beat happens, and then he's like repeating like stuff like rhythmically, and it's fucking great.
It is catchy as hell, and it continues to reinforce that narrative really well.
Yep, lyrically it is all relevant.
It is repetition to really drill home the things that need to be on your mind in between the points of progression in the narrative. It is serving a purpose, and it's doing it really well.
Yeah. So it is one of those precious little games that transcend everything it's doing wrong. And this is something that sometimes confuses people that have problems with the way I review games, where they want everything to be a direct comparison. You know, I would fully expect like a Starfield fan to be like, well, why are you forgiving this for being janky and criticising Starfield for being janky? And it's because of some games have transcendent properties that break their way through those issues. There's been a couple of reviews I've written over the years where I've said, if this was in any other game, I would not forgive it at all. But those games don't have a hook elsewhere.
We all have those games where we're like, it's that game that I love with all my heart that is objectively kind of bad on paper.
Yes, The Sinking City. The worst game I ever loved, question mark.
My favourite 7 out of 10 No More Heroes. There's stuff in that I love that carried me through some real bad design choices.
Yeah.
You know?
A lot of Suda51 stuff, especially. Yeah, there are certain games, and this is something unique to the medium, I think. With the exception of, like, a so bad it's good film. Although most of the time those films are still bad. Like, The Room is hilariously entertaining, but it's still, like, an objectively shit film. But there are certain games that are so bad in many ways, yet are doing something that makes it genuinely good.
I guess the film equivalent would be something like a beautifully told story that was recorded by people who didn't know what they were doing with the tech. So, like, there's out-of-focus shots and, like, poorly framed, slightly wobbly shots, but the story being told is fantastic. Like, I could see that existing, but you don't get it in the same way that you kind of do with video games sometimes. Where you get some wonky technical elements, but something magical pulling it through.
Yeah. I think that's a good equivalent, the sort of bad tech, good writing. Although I think what makes games a bit unique is that can be so off-putting because you only have the visuals and the audio to get that stuff across. And I like to think that I'm a pretty decent writer when it comes to videos, but I've had things where the microphone is fucked up and it's too distracting. Whereas games can have this unique property where, because it's audio-visual, narrative, and mechanics, that can have all sorts of things going wrong and going right, there's a lot more to play with in terms of presentation and what the audience takes from it. And I think there are a few elements that are unique to games, and not enough games take advantage of the fact that they're games. Not to always bag on Quantic Dream, but a Quantic Dream game that is so obsessed with trying to be a film that it hasn't stopped to think, what can we do as a game to produce a film-like experience that you couldn't have by simply shooting a film, which is important for Quantic Dream, because if Heavy Rain was a movie, I've said this before, it would be laughed out of a theatre. It would be on the same level as a Tommy Wiseau film, and I genuinely believe that. And I'm not just saying it because David Cage is French. I always worry people think that's what I'm doing, but I genuinely rate their talent the same. And El Paso Elsewhere is one of those games that, as a game, has a lot going wrong with it, but has that transcendent quality.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me wax philosophical on all that.
A lot of what I would have had to say would have mirrored, but I think playing this game through, I very much was like, specifically, this is a game for Steph to talk about, I think.
I really appreciate that. The game means something to me personally, and I have appreciated the chance to wax lyrical about it.
There is stuff in there that has personally impacted me too, but yeah, it's something special, that one. Conrad, what you been playing this week?
I played that Amanda the Adventurer game that you were talking about last week. That little
how'd you
horror
get on with it?
game based around the children's TV
Yeah,
show.
you sort of Dora the Explorer tapes.
Right.
Yeah.
I really like this. I like the way that it is, conveying its puzzle information. Because it's always sort of right there if you're even modestly paying attention. There's one section of it where I'm like a little, okay, this would be tedious to have figured out entirely on your own. There's a section that has one of those, like the speak and spell.
Oh, the speak and spell, with the pause button.
Yeah. Having to go through all of the clicking around in that scene to try and find whatever it is that's going to trigger the correct symbol to show up for you. That's a little, I'm not wild about that.
Yeah.
But I've gotten 2 of what I think are 3 endings. And
I think there's more than 3 because I've got 3 and I think I've started another one.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, no. Now that I think about it, I think there's 4 torn stickers on the TV when you look at it. So there's probably a 4th one in there. Yeah. I like the way this works. I like how not only the information that it's conveying for you about the puzzle route that takes you to the next tape, but the little bits of additional information that are tucked away in there with the intent of you experimenting and finding related solutions to puzzles that will give you more context.
Yes, and sometimes finding entirely separate little side tapes that aren't going to progress you but will give you more insight into where you're going. And I like that the core path of progression is pretty clear, but that those things are just out of sight enough.
Yeah, just on the periphery. But yeah, I mean, I have a cabinet left to open. I've no clue where the answer for that is. Mm-hmm. So I hesitate to say I'm struggling because I'm not that invested in finding the last ending, but I might go and just look up solutions just to see the content because I am curious to see what else they do with it, and it feels like there is an answer ultimately. That's the sense it's giving me is that I'm actually going to get an answer, which will be very, very frustrating if I don't. But
yeah, I'm on, I think, the 4th go through, and I suspect you are right that is going to be the final one, and I'm still of the opinion that I get the same sense as you, that it will have an answer, and I appreciate that, and I hope that is correct, but yeah, it's not a thing where I'm desperately, I need to finish this right now, I need to know how it ends, but I've been enjoying the journey.
Yes, yeah, very much
and
so.
I've been enjoying the ways that little things tweak the path a bit. As you say, the puzzle solutions are very simple and in your face for the core progression path, but I do like that there are a couple of times where they play with that, where they get you used to there's one answer and it's very simple and it's right in front of you, and then give you a tape where I'm thinking of an early one where it's a time was mentioned, that's probably the answer.
Sure.
And then it turned out there were 5 times either mentioned or shown, and I was oh, yeah, no, I got too locked in on thinking you were just going to tell me the one thing and that was going to be the answer.
Yeah.
And playing around with stuff like that. But
yeah, I like the information delivery that they do because it's so also of the medium that it seeks to emulate, right? Yeah.
It is so Dora the Explorer of, do you know the time on the clock? I'm going to repeat it for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But again, that serves to not be a barrier to you seeing what comes next, and I appreciate that.
Yep. Very clever game. I'm looking forward to seeing what else is in there.
I need to get this.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
it's neat.
It's not that long. It's not that complicated puzzle wise, and it just feels really neat.
Yep.
Got the Steam Deck in my hands. Gonna get it out.
In agreement on that. So yeah, that's the main thing I played this week. I've also been, and I'm doing it right now. I've mentioned I've gotten back into painting miniatures, and somebody in my Discord made the observation that on Epic last week, it'll be no longer the free game by the time this is out, but Model Builder, a sim game where you build models.
Yes. Is this the knockoff Gundam model building?
Well, there is some. I think there are some mechs in here eventually. It has started me off with like a couple of military vehicles and a dwarf, like a dwarf enchanter or something. They have a partnership with a company that makes miniature wargaming miniatures and fantasy miniatures. Titan Forge, I think, is... Yes, Titan Forge. They have a partnership.
Titan Forge, yeah.
Yeah. So some of their models are appearing in this, which is kind of perfect. Like, what great synergy for a company that is already basically just 3D printing their models. Fantastic. You just get your assets in there. Perfect. But then I went and looked at the Titan Forge website, and this is not a company that I'm familiar with, but it is one of my favorite kinds of miniature makers. The ones who like to tread the line on infringement. The ones that like to go right up to it. I'm speaking specifically about a model that they have on here called the Venom Redemptor. And I'm going to send a photo of this to you so you can see what I mean. What do you see when you see the Venom Redemptor there?
I'm partially laughing because of what I'm seeing.
Right.
And I'm partially laughing because every time I see the Toxic Avenger, I think of the Toxic Avenger 4, which, as tasteless and offensive and awful as it is so fucking funny in places. Like, and don't get me wrong, like, there is stuff in there that is, like, on the same level as shit I said 10 years ago. Like, it's bad.
It's a trauma production.
It's trauma, yeah. But the fact that they had a relatively, for them, serious film called Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD, and then Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD is in that film, is in Toxic Avenger 4 as this drunk moron, and just hilarious with it. Also, I don't know if the joke predates The Simpsons. Damn it, they're very slowly getting away. But I remember it in this, and part of me wants to say that Toxic Avenger 4 came out first, and it's a great fucking line. I vaguely remember an old granny being run over by a car, and Lemmy, of course. I realise I'm just banging on about Toxic Avenger 4 now, but I might have to rewatch it. And again, listeners, I cannot stress how tasteless and bad the film is, and that I will be judged if I watch it and enjoy it, for it is a trauma film. But every time I see the Toxic Avenger, in a rare twist for me, I don't think about the cartoon spin-off, because of course that's where my mind always goes, is Saturday morning cartoons. And long before I ever watched a trauma film, I fucking loved that TV show. I forget what it was called, because I don't think was it called Toxic Crusaders?
Toxic Crusaders was the game that they made based on, okay. And that might have also been the name of the animated series, but that was the name of the, I think, NES title that they put out.
Right, that might be it then, because I can imagine an NES game being based on the cartoon way more than being based on any of the trauma films.
Yeah, Toxic Crusaders was the animated series.
Yeah. I watched the shit. It was that and Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Oh.
I watched the shit out of those cartoons.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm feeling nostalgic again, which I need to not do because I am I'm having an "oh my god, I'm 40 in a few months" crisis.
Oh,
and
yes,
my
yes,
usual love of nostalgia is
it's now
being
weaponized
poisoned against me. Yeah, yeah. What was it? I was rewatching a bunch of Reeves and Mortimer stuff, Vic Reeves' Big Night Out, and Drop the Dead Donkey, which was a really good satire of it had a lot of topical humour, but a really good satire of corporate executives and exec speak, which for something that was in the 90s is one of those things that's so fucking relevant still, hasn't aged.
Right.
But when I think about how long ago things were now,
oh yeah,
I feel dreadful.
No, I was listening to Wait, Don't Tell Me, which is a news comedy show that's like performed live and released by NPR every week. And that's just, one of the nice light things I like to do to get news stories that I've missed or whatever. It's a fun little show and I like it a lot. But sometimes they make jokes on it. They were asking a question of a millennial about James Bond. There was an Ian Fleming biography that came out with the revelation that James Bond's name wasn't always going to be James Bond. He had a different name in mind. And when the person didn't know the answer, they always give a clue. And they said if they'd had this first name, they wouldn't have gotten any respect. And then the host had to immediately stop, realizing that they're speaking to a millennial, and say, "You're not going to get that joke. You're too young."
Yeah.
And that hurt a lot.
Those ones are tough when it's a joke that could have only existed in its time.
Yeah.
We discovered this with the aforementioned Super Mario Brothers live-action film. There were jokes in that film, or there is a certain joke in that film that I didn't get, because even though I was alive in 93, I did not know this, and by the time I rewatched the film as an adult, I thought the Reebok logo on the Bob-omb's feet was shameless product placement. It is not. I mean, it might still be, but it is a specific joke about Reebok at the time were doing a step aerobics thing. That's the joke.
Yep.
I never got that. It was just product placement to me. But for many people at the time would have gotten that joke.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone watching now, even if they watched it as a kid, but just didn't know that. It's something so lost to history and is only really known because there is one person on the internet calls himself the Super Mario Brothers movie archive.
God bless them.
It's not an archive, it's one person, but they have saved every scrap of information, every newspaper cutting they could find, every interview they could find, everything about that film, which also hasn't helped the midlife crisis thing. as I think about preservation and how much can be lost if there isn't that person, and when that person goes, everything will eventually fade. But have you listened to the rap yet? The Super Mario Brothers 3 deleted scenes that was the political arc of the henchmen Spike and Iggy that culminated in them activating and rapping.
This is in the Morton Jankel cut, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
For those who don't know, the Morton Jankel cut was a version of the film put together by the Super Mario Brothers archive person, assumingly with help, but I don't know the specifics on that, that reinserts content that had been cut from the theatrical release of the film, and it's named the Morton Jankel cut in honor of the directors.
Yeah, there's 15 minutes extra footage, some of it explaining some, big inconsistencies in the film, where did the slime come from that Cooper trips up on in the Devo chamber. There's a whole scene that shows him like devolving someone until they turn to slime. And I genuinely believe that Super Mario Brothers, the movie, would have become a lot more of a cult classic had the Spike and Iggy content remained. Because in this fucked up adaptation of a children's video game, there is two henchmen going woke and turning babyface by doing the thing that got Toad devolved for earlier in the film, which is something I realised, because he was like for dissenting, writing songs about Cooper that criticise him. And that is what the henchmen do to like officially turn face, is they start doing dissenting songs. And the rap is shit, but the lyrical content, like, it's, you reptilians should number in the millions. Like, just preceded by Mario telling them, it's your world, do something about it. And I'm like, if that had been in the this would have been a lefty cult classic.
Yeah, but it was made in 1993, and that was not going to be included in 1993 by film executives.
Most likely.
No.
They had a political film in mind. They wanted it to be a political movie.
Morton and Jankel were advertising people and done some music videos, and wound up with this after the success of Max Headroom.
I see.
And yeah, so that's why that is there. That is who they were.
Yeah, it explains a lot.
Yeah.
The Max Headroom connection. Yeah, it's a bit of a diversion there.
Bit of a diversion.
Not an unpleasant one.
You've been enjoying making models.
Yeah, well, I have been enjoying making models. And the I will say this game it's pretty cool. It takes a lot of the frustrating, annoying, it just speeds everything up in the process of putting together one of these things while still utilizing a lot of the techniques and introducing them in an effective way. I think I'm on like my 5th or 6th model that I've thrown together. And, it's taught me assembly, it's taught basic painting, and introduced decal application, washing, and dry brushing so far. And airbrushing. So all of these little elements have already been introduced within about 5 models. And all of the things are easy to execute. They're so, very simplified. When you paint something, the pieces are individually identified and you can just splotch color your base coat. But then you do get that sort of fine detail control when you get into the washing and dry brushing. It's pretty satisfying, actually. One thing I did want to note is the music that's in it. The opening theme, in particular, when you're on like that opening menu, now this all has to be like public domain acquired, music of some sort. There's no way somebody paid for this. But that first one, that comes right out of 80s porn. I swear to God, I've heard it somewhere. I'm going to be like going nuts, wondering what inappropriate content I have seen associated with that audio in the past. It is just a treat. This model builder it's fun for what it is. If you have an interest in building models that is more passive and not a lot of experience, you'll actually learn some stuff about how people achieve effects and things like that by playing it. And I think it's neat. It's worth checking out. Yeah.
Cool.
Laura, you play anything else?
Yeah, so we're like nearly an hour in.
Are we really? Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna quickly try and rattle through the 2 time-sensitive games I want to talk about this week, because this week is the week where they're kind of relevant. So first of all, I've got a Survivors game to recommend, or a demo for one at least, that is really, really, really promising.
Is this the Deep Rock Galactic one?
Yeah, Deep Rock Galactic Survivor.
I've heard of this, yeah. I haven't played yet.
So I've talked about Deep Rock Galactic before on this show. It is a sort of co-op game about a bunch of dwarves doing sort of mining-relating tasks as a group and then trying to get back up to the surface. And I really like Deep Rock Galactic. I think it's got a good sense of humor. It is a well-made, fun game to play with other people. But specifically, I really love how well supported that game has been in terms of like having a really, 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 really like multiple years long tail of consistent free additional content added to it. It has been supported really well. It's made me very sort of willing to look positively on what they're doing. And they have put out a demo that is available for, I think, the next week or two for their Survivors game, Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. It's going to be releasing in early access by the end of the year, but the demo that is out is surprisingly far-reaching already just in the demo. It is a top-down Survivor-style game. You pick a character class and potentially a modification to that character class that will be your sort of starting weapon and some starting information. And the way that the one level that is there in the demo is available in a couple of different difficulties, but the way that it's framed is you have 5 levels of depth you're trying to get down to complete a run. And each of those levels will have a bunch of waves of enemies that are coming in to try and kill you. A number of resources you can be mining to either get permanent upgrades between runs or to get upgrades within runs. Between each floor of the run, you have a little shop that you can be spending certain resources on to like purchase additional upgrades as you go. Once you get a little further into it, you unlock having little side objectives on each level that will be like collect X number of this little mushroom, funky mushroom that's growing around on the level. And it's not strictly like a time limit for each level, but it's basically there is a timer going, and at certain points in the timer, more waves of enemies will come in that you have to survive. There will usually be like a big, tough elite enemy at the end of that level. You defeat that enemy, you've got 30 seconds to run back to your drill and drill down to the next floor. It works really well. I was a little dubious when I first saw it, because one of the first things that stands out about it visually is it is in 3D. It is a 3D top-down Survivors game. And I'm happy to say it is clear enough to understand what is going on Steam Deck, and it runs really nicely on Steam Deck, even at its most like chaotic and full. They do a lot of really nice stuff with like visual effects to have that sort of Vampire Survivors-esque dopamine hit of like lots of sparks going to make you feel like you're doing something fantastical. But they do really nice stuff, and I'm glad it's in 3D because they do stuff with lighting and things being easier to see as you get closer to them and as you mine through walls that I think is really to the benefit of how it's paced. The demo, as I say, is really in depth. There is a level with a couple of different like difficulty modes to play it on, a character and a variant for that character. The entire like the first several levels of the full between runs upgrade tree are available for your sort of like bumping your stats up as you go. But there is a whole bunch of like, do these missions unlock new weapons, unlock new upgrade types? Like I've been playing this like 5-6 hours and I'm still unlocking new things in the demo. A few things I really like that this does. You start with just one weapon, but you unlock more weapons specifically by reaching level thresholds. So it's always a certain number of levels before you get an additional weapon. You can have up to 4 weapons. Most of them attack the nearest enemy to you. There are a couple of exceptions. There are some weapons that will attack in like a cross pattern or will circle you or things like that. But the standard is attack the nearest thing to you. I wasn't sure how that would go when I heard that. In practice, the system works really well. I like that you can both mine and shoot at the same time. Mining doesn't mean you have to stop attacking the enemies that are coming for you.
Oh, nice.
Which means you can be mining your way through a rock wall and shooting behind you as you go. And that's really nice. I like that as you progress further through it, you start getting more ways to specialize your weapons. Like, let's say you've got 4 weapons and you focus on leveling up just one of them. Your weapon has a level. And at like level 12 with a specific weapon, you get offered like a big modifier, and you get a couple of choices, and it'll be like, drastically improve these stats, but drastically decrease these stats, or change your weapon damage type entirely to this damage type. And I like the way all these systems end up going together to feel like you have a lot of control over your build in a game that is so, like, you're dropped into a place, just grab as much as you can and get out. It's feeling really impressive so far. The demo is well worth going and checking out. There is a surprising amount of play to be had in it. I am somewhat willing to put some faith into this being a game I could pick up in early access and not feel like I've been ripped off, in as much as, from what I've seen, they're targeting the Vampire Survivors price point. Mm-hmm. This is going to be like a $5 when it comes out. And you know what? I've had enough fun with this demo already that if I pay a $5 for the early access version by the end of the year, and like there's not that much more in there, I'd still probably feel like I got my $5's worth. Mm-hmm. But they've already outlined, like, at launch, here's how much extra there will be on top of that, and here's sort of our sort of look forward. And I'm like, you've been pretty good about updating Deep Rock Galactic for a long time. I'm pretty willing to give you a $5 when this comes out.
Yeah, so I would have some confidence that they'll have a lot of content long term for that.
Yeah. So that's Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. Go check out that demo while it's up. It's looking really promising. The other one I want to get out the way quickly because I was going to say it comes out this week. It comes out this week for people who are willing to pay extra. We'll get to that. Forza Motorsport 2023. So, I don't generally get on with sim-style racing games. I talked maybe a year or so ago when Gran Turismo 7 came out about the fact that I just don't get on with these games. They require me to be too precise and too perfect and to know too much about cars that I don't know. I just can't get on with them. Gran Turismo 7 in particular was really disappointing because it was like 3 years into PlayStation having this really good run of every first-party game they release being pretty good about accessibility, and then Gran Turismo 7 is just this weird backstep. Forza Motorsport is really damn impressive in terms of accessibility generally, and I have a couple of like little things I'll say at the end, but generally speaking, I really like this game's approach. It has a really nice, simple yes or no toggle accessibility menu on first boot. One of the things in there that's really interesting is they default to having driving assists on, and they recommend if you are not, like, they have that on as default so that people don't feel bad about going, I'm not great with this genre, do I turn it on? They're just like, nah, just we'll turn it on as default. If you want to turn these things off later, don't worry about it. So as default, it gives you a certain degree of assistance with the technical racing driving. But there's a bunch of really nice accessibility stuff in there, from being able to really customize what elements of sim racing driving you struggle with and getting additional support on that. There is the Forza Horizons rewind function, where you can, on most of the difficulties, you can just hit rewind at any time and rewind the race with no penalty and just start, go back like around that corner you fucked up and start from there, so you don't fuck up a whole 10-minute long race on the last corner. There's a lot of good customizable difficulty stuff going on in terms of you can separately customize the difficulty of the enemy AI drivers on the track, the rule set by which you are expected to abide, and that sort of includes, like, do you have to worry about, like, car damage, destruction, how readily will you be penalized for going off the track, things like that. You can change your starting position in the lineup of cars, and it will give you an estimated position, like, based on your practice laps and the difficulty you've set. We reckon you'll probably come in this position range. Do you want more or less challenge by moving yourself forward or back? All of this stuff is really nice. There is some very ambitious stuff in there for blind gamers, and the reviews I've seen from blind gamers have been really, really promising on this. For making this technically focused racing sim playable by sightless blind players. And this comes in the form of a bunch of, there is audio description for cutscenes, there is a bunch of audio assists for things like panning the audio left or right to tell you where the sort of expected driving line is, or an audio cue that pans left and right to tell you how close you are to the side of the track. And some of these I've been using as a sighted player because I find them really useful, like having a voice read out to you upcoming turns and what direction and what strength of turn they will be, so I don't have to keep glancing at the minimap. Really, really awesome stuff that I very much appreciate. It is nice to see a sim racing game not use the fact that it is a, gritty technical game as an excuse not to be accessible. However, two little things. One, I know it's technically by a different team, but I really enjoyed Forza Horizon 5 having American and British Sign Language interpreter support in-game, and I was kind of surprised that Forza Motorsport didn't have that. I get that it's a different team, but it's one of those things where it was the first setting I looked for, because in my head I was like, Forza, it has that accessibility setting, right? The other thing, and I'm going to keep hammering on about this, Xbox really seems to be trying to quietly move towards normalizing pay extra to play 5 days early as a standard. Mm-hmm. It is disingenuous to say that Forza Motorsport is available day one on Game Pass. It's not, unless you spend an extra 30 quid. It is a monetization method that is capitalizing on fear of missing out, which particularly impacts people with disabilities that impact impulse control. And I will not be quiet about the fact that if you are a company that is trying to position yourself as forward-thinking on accessibility, you are going to have to reckon with the fact that this is not an accessible monetization strategy. It is a monetization strategy that particularly is egregious against disabled people, and that I don't think can be at home with a company trying to be more accessible.
Yeah, it's what we've said about microtransactions as well.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. It's exploitative, and if you're exploiting people, where do you get off preening your feathers about how accessible you are?
Yeah. So, this game is undoubtedly a really good step forward in many, many, many ways for making technical sim racers more approachable, more accessible. Just, I wish that I didn't have to give the caveat of, Xbox, please stop trying to make this a thing. I'm going to be really disappointed in you if you make this a thing. So there we go. Quickly rattled through my my two things. Steph, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about this week?
I shall also rattle. So I've gone back to two old games. Many years old games. Dynasty Warriors 9. Just to see if it was as bad as I remember. It is so shit. I'm so offended by that game, because what I predicted when it came out is what happened. When I looked at what they did to Zhang He and took out, the weapons he's had the entire series, except for one that they fixed in an update. He's always had two claws that he fights with. In Dynasty Warriors 9, he's got throwing knives, which is the same as half a dozen other characters, because I don't think there's one single character in that game that isn't cloned from another character whose favoured weapon isn't the same as someone else's. And after Dynasty Warriors 8, specifically the Extreme Legends version, differentiated all of the clones and had so many varied movesets. The sheer cynicism of taking out one of the most iconic characters, iconic by Dynasty Warriors standards, one of the most iconic characters is iconic weapons, and then putting it in a season pass is so naked in its exploitative fucking attitude. And I said at the time, this is what they're going to do. They've made all these cloned movesets and taken out all these weapons, and I guarantee you they're going to sell them back to you. And checking the game out again, that is exactly what they did. That game was so bad, it redefined my relationship with one of my favourite series, to the point where I don't really much care about Dynasty Warriors anymore. It was that ruinous, because it just threw into a harsh light exactly how they've been coasting for years.
It's so heartbreaking because it has been such a huge part of your life for God knows how long, like 20 plus years.
Yeah. Like ever since Dynasty Warriors 3, it was one of the games that got me into gaming in a real serious sense, not just I like playing some games. I got hooked on that and partially started getting into games criticism because of it. The first video game I ever wrote on a website that I believe no longer even exists was Dynasty Warriors 4. I love that series. Loved. And while Tecmo Koei still puts in the fucking effort when it's someone else's license, like I'll always pay attention to a Hyrule Warriors. The Dynasty Warriors 9 is a truly disgusting game. Real shame. I will quickly touch on Helldivers as well. Helldivers 2 is coming out, and I didn't know that.
No?
But, well, I've known it for a while, but I didn't see any big announcement. I was just scrolling on the store one day and went, oh, okay. I remember, I could be remembering it wrong, but I'm pretty sure I fucking loved that game.
I fucking loved it. I gave it a 9 or 10 in review.
Yeah, I feel like I was around the same. Fucking wonderful game at the time.
You're not into it now? Not feeling it now?
There's still a lot I like, and
did you have anybody to play it with at this point?
That's the funny thing. The last time I tried to go back to Helldivers, it was dead. It was because it's so focused on multiplayer.
Right.
It was unplayably dead.
Yeah, there's if you are willing to adopt a specific play style and commit to that, the game is playable single player into late game missions, but it is really, really hard and so specific in how you have to approach it that it's not particularly fun.
And that's part of the problem I've had going back to it. Because I don't know what happened. The game's world is very different now. Updates may have brought people back. Like, I logged on and got an achievement for winning the Great War against the bugs. Now there's all sorts of cyborgs and shit running around, which I think were in the original, but
there were three.
Shifted.
I think there were three factions.
3 factions,
and the one you were at war with would change from season to season or something.
That's it. Okay, so I misremembered that, but yeah, so they're on the cyborgs right now. Going back to it, the gameplay itself, the shooting, the missions, the interesting way you use equipment with the opening up, holding down,
having to enter in the little code,
little up, down, left, right codes to get stuff. That's interesting.
And I love how you can't. It's not like the action stops. You're still vulnerable. In fact, in a multiplayer situation, you often need to communicate to your teammates that, all right, I'm going to deploy something, defend me, which I love.
Yeah. The issue I'm having is the friendly fire is
it's always been,
killing me. Yeah. I know. I loved it in spite of that back in the day. Talking again about the Transcendent thing. I hope it's not in the sequel. I honestly do, because it's not just players shooting each other. Items like the automatic minigun, basically a turret, it's a downright trap because it doesn't discriminate.
No.
And it will turn round while you're trying to shoot something to shoot it too, and it'll just shoot you.
Yep.
I have some footage I collected from yesterday where, in quick succession, players kept spawning on top of me and just crushing me. And there was one level where I died 5 times, and most of it was because someone kept running me over by accident in a bike. And it wasn't fun. That's the thing. It wasn't fun.
When I was playing this, that was the case then too. And where I can absolutely understand the frustration for a player who wants to succeed in that. Yes, I take a more Fall Guys approach to my feelings on Helldivers. These things are just gonna happen, and you're either gonna win or you're not, and either way is fine with me. I've always liked the friendly fire element of it. I think that it is... I think Helldivers is one of the most you need to work and communicate as a team games of its genre because of things like that. Because it's all manageable, you know, if you're prepared and aware and conscious of the information that you need to make the right decisions in the moment. But the problem then comes in with your online matchmaking and things like that. Having a cohesive team is far from a guarantee. And so, yeah, it could definitely be a frustrating slog for people. I always thought it was just a really neat thing that I loved, even when I would get crushed repeatedly by an incoming returning character. Things I always took it as my fault. I was not paying attention to all of the information, and it was available to me. But I see where you're coming from.
With someone with attention deficit disorder.
Yes.
It really sucks, especially when new players spawn in, because I'm not expecting it. Mm-hmm. And if I'm shooting something and they drop in so quick.
Yep.
And I've not even moved.
Yep.
It's like they have laser guided landed on my fucking head.
Yeah.
I feel like if I were playing more with friends.
Yes.
Because I very much play with randoms, and these days you have to. I've always enjoyed playing with randoms and very rarely feel the need to not do that. I don't like talking. I'm very self-conscious talking in just audio.
Sure.
She says on a podcast. But like chatting on mics, even if it's someone I know, I feel self-conscious a lot of the time.
Yep.
So I like... Even games where they're like, oh, you've got to play it like with friends and you've got to strategize and talk. I've gotten just fine with most games. But I think Helldivers is one of those games that truly would benefit. Because half the time I'm getting crushed or knocked over and needing to be picked up. And all I'm thinking is the other players must think I'm a fucking dickhead. And it just is frustrating. And, you know I bring it up a lot, and Laura brings it up a lot, but that's because it's always relevant, is having ADHD, where it's, if you weren't paying attention, it's your fault. It's hard to swallow that when it's not your fault, when the lack of attention or hyperfixating on something to the degree of exclusion is not your fault. It's your brain. So I think if there wasn't friendly fire, I'd have gone back to the game and loved it like I used to, because it did not add to the game for me. And I turned it off yesterday after a while, getting back into it and enjoying it.
Yeah.
But I finished a mission at one point and was like, I am sick of being chewed up by my own turrets, while trying to keep out of their way. So it's still a great game, like beautifully put together. Yeah. I am very excited about the sequel, and even if it's got friendly fire, I will play it and I will try to love it.
See, I'm not excited about the sequel.
No?
No, they've changed perspective. It's now an over-the-shoulder shooter, and that holds so much less appeal for me than that top-down Diablo-esque perspective that it had. Yeah, I'm really not keen to check out the sequel. I hope it's good. I hope people like it, but I don't think it's going to be for me.
No. Okay.
No. Yeah.
Well, I do want to check it out. There's a lot. Having gone back to Helldivers, there's a lot of stuff I'd like to see.
I'd like to see the setting explored some more.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Starship Troopers style universe with like the idea of auto-democracy, where they just ask you your opinions and it automatically votes for you. the characters yelling things like, how about a nice cup of liberty? All that shit, all the jingoism. It's got a great little world.
Yep.
Yeah, so that is what I've been playing. Hour and 20 minutes in. I realised a lot of that was me rambling and monologuing.
Valuable.
That's okay. Yeah. Are you ducking out now?
I'm going to duck out. I've got to try and get this Baldur's Gate 3 review up before I pass out. Finally written one, so that'll be on the Jimquisition.com. Hopefully, before this goes up, so you can see that on the Jimquisition.com. I'm also working on an El Paso Elsewhere video. I'll just do all my little sign-offs.
Yeah.
Do check out this week's Jimquisition because an old friend has returned and a lot of people were excited for it. Miniature Fantasy Willem Dafoe. I found him amongst some of the moving boxes that we just put up into one of the rooms and left.
Mm-hmm.
I was digging through, found him, got excited. His hand fell off. So that's just been taped up under the sleeve. But people were so happy to see him back, and that makes me happy. My next wrestling date is October 10th. I will be in Manchester for Sovereign Pro Wrestling. You can look them up at SovPro is their social on Twitter and that. My next date after that is, I believe it's October 28th in Blackpool. That'll be PCW. They're doing a Halloween show. I've been informed that I am going to get to have a no DQ match with a kind of Halloween-y sort of theme. If you ever saw anything from my last no DQ match with Kid Bandit, you will know that I go fucking hard. When it's a hardcore match, I go fucking hard. PCW is a family show. Don't know how much I can get away with the thumbtacks, but they're in Pokeballs, so we'll see. And that's that. Thank you all so much for all of the support and that. I am going to duck off and go be tired. Thank you so much, Laura and Conrad. I had a particularly delightful podcast today.
Yeah.
It's been a lovely one.
Fun.
Yeah.
I hope you get some sleep soon. Now run away before we talk about everything that's depressing with video games.
Yes, I would like some nice dreams. See ya.
See ya.
Right.
Let's dig into the news.
Oh boy.
Because, there sure is more. There sure is more this week. So this started as something that was rumoured and then sort of got confirmed. Epic Games has laid off 830 employees.
Wow.
Lots of companies that they acquired, they're very quickly selling back off. And, oops, we were spending more money than we were earning. That's your problem, entry-level people within the company. Fuck you.
Yeah, it's not a great look. They've been acquiring, trying to establish themselves as the alternative in the PC space. And, well, for one, I don't know if the PC space is large enough, frankly. Mm-hmm. But, and Fortnite, I mean, I haven't looked, but is Fortnite doing as well as it used to? I would imagine by this point it probably plateaued.
I imagine it has to have slowed down at least a little, I would think. But, yeah, so there's a whole bunch of little stories that sort of came out of this. They're selling off Bandcamp, which, look, I can't prove that this is why they're getting rid of Bandcamp, but I will point out a thing that's of note. Bunch of Bandcamp employees unionized recently. And when they had to start picking some companies to get rid of, Epic sure did choose to get rid of that one.
Another interesting conspiracy theory about this, and I can't speak to this, but I did think it was interesting. The Bandcamp acquisition coincided with the period of time where they were fighting with Apple over App Store fees.
Yes.
And Bandcamp had some other prior agreement that the allegation is that Epic acquired them to get access to that alternative agreement and try to apply it to their other business, which seems like a kind of a wild gambit to attempt, and that sort of makes me think probably not the case. But an interesting theorizing that we're doing over here.
So a bunch of stories came out of this. First of all, a lot of people did not like Tim Sweeney's statement on this matter, and if you go read it, it's smarmy as fuck, because it's a lot of Tim Sweeney going, yeah, we decided to buy a lot of companies, and we thought we could make that affordable, but, like, no, we made a bad decision. We bought more companies at once than we really should have done. That's on us. Anyway, we're cutting these jobs to stabilize our finances, so fuck off.
What? Yeah, if you fucked up, what you should do is have to give up your stock options to people who make better decisions.
Yes. Other stuff that came out of this, Mediatonic, the developer behind Fall Guys, has been severely impacted by these job losses. Now, initially, the rumor that was doing the rounds was that they had fired everyone, that team just didn't exist anymore. They are very clear to say, no, we didn't get rid of everyone, we've just, the team's been severely impacted, which could mean anything up until and including there's like 3 people left.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, that really fucking sucks for that team.
I mean, what a rise and fall. Like, yeah, unreal. It's been like what, 3 years? That sounds right.
Yeah.
To go from an indie published, Devolver published game, to then, I feel.
Yeah, that one really fucking sucks. Also of note, and I forgot to mention this before, that 830 people being let go is roughly 16% of all of Epic Games staff, so that's like 1 in 8 people got laid off, which is, just to give you a sense of that scale. This also brought to light another story, not directly connected, but it sort of brought it to the front. You're aware of Hatoful Boyfriend.
I've heard of it. I've not played myself.
Yeah, the pigeon dating sim. So Hatoful Boyfriend HD was published by Devolver in 2014. Mediatonic was acquired by Epic in 2021. And so, like, the way things have worked out is that that port was developed by Mediatonic, so Epic should have been paying licenses, paying royalties to Hatoful Boyfriend's developer. Apparently, that just hasn't been happening.
Oh, cool.
The developer voiced their frustration on Twitter, saying, "By the way, I've got no royalty payment for Hatoful Boyfriend from Epic since they acquired Mediatonic back in spring of 2021. I don't think the sales have been 0 for 2 years, ?
Yeah, that seems unlikely.
The obligations were transferred to Epic, but they never sent any replies to any of my emails, and this was in public tweets to Tim Sweeney. Do you have any ideas to make contact with the right person?" And after this blew up online, as part of Epic's no good, very bad week, the Epic Games Twitter did respond and say, "We are looking into this, and the team will be reaching out to you directly." So, yeah, indie dev might not have been paid for like 2+ years because clearly not a priority for Epic, I guess.
Why would it be?
That's everything to do with like Epic firing a bunch of people. There is one other Epic Games related story, and it's interesting for different reasons. Fortnite is mandating that individual bits of downloadable content for the game need individual age ratings starting in November. And this is interesting because it is setting a precedent that has not been previously set. Generally speaking, the age rating on a boxed, on a game as it releases is the age rating for that game. And PEGI and ESRB ratings typically don't change based on additional content in most cases.
But they should be able to, frankly. Like, I think that this having content for every single piece of downloadable content might be overkill. But having the capacity, but at the same time, you don't want the general rating to be affected by one small piece of content that 99.9% of users won't ever be exposed to. But
so digging into the why of this, I think I can see sort of what's going on. So Epic made this announcement, and from what I can tell, they're doing this proactively.
Yeah, because porn is coming to the platform.
I mean, kinda.
Oh, God. All right.
The
they
thing
do
is...
need to be careful, because their audience is children. That is who plays Fortnite.
Yes. So, the thing is, third-party developed content is becoming an increasingly big part of Fortnite. The company has been introducing, like, the Unreal editors, specific Fortnite tools. Creative 2.0 was what it was called and was released back in March. You can do, like, full Unreal editor stuff and bring it into Fortnite with custom assets, custom animations, custom audio. They're trying to turn Fortnite into Roblox.
What? Oh,
is
okay,
the consensus.
I can see that.
They're trying to go make your entire own game in Unreal Engine and bring it into Fortnite and have it be a part of Fortnite.
But what they're also doing is, they're pulling in ESRB in a lot of ways. When the ESRB made the transition into digital, they pretty much stopped rating games themselves. That's not a thing that they do. It's done by the publishers now. They shifted the burden of liability. And that's what's happening here.
Yes. So the way that this is going to work is that there is something called the International Age Rating Coalition, which has a questionnaire where you go through and tick all the boxes that apply to your game, basically. And it will, you feed that data in, and Peggy and the ESRB will spit out an appropriate age rating based on the boxes.
IARC's been around for years. I've used it. It's a pretty thorough system, but yeah.
The way it's been described is ratings authorities can then modify these assigned ratings based on their own review of the published experience should they wish to. So yeah, this will be, you do the questionnaire yourself, we auto spit out an age rating. If someone alerts us that you've lied about about stuff and you've got the wrong rating, we'll have a look at it. But yes, the intention here is that this will be compatible with console, like, age limits in, like, parental controls.
And it will be automated.
Yep. And this is basically Fortnite trying to get out ahead of the problems that Roblox has had with, this game is for children, why was my child able to click on a game that was... what was the shit that was, like, talked about a while back, like Prostitute Simulator and shit like that in Roblox? Like, they want to keep kids away from that content while trying to make their Roblox. And I'm like, yeah, I get it.
Yep, I get it.
It does set an interesting precedent that we've not really seen elsewhere done. Other news of job losses, Team 17 is having a bunch of redundancies happening. We don't know the exact specifics, but there are going to be large cuts to their QA department, as well as cuts to staffing across most other areas of the business.
This is a company that has been around forever. Like, for fucking ever. And just sort of trucked along. Like, you don't hear, there's never any controversy around them. There's never any, like, weird, they've just been there sort of trucking along in the background. And I kind of want to know more about Team 17. If there's anybody who's worked for them that wants to, like, send me an email, because I'm intensely curious about that business. I mean, I expect it's just a small shop, and maybe it's just been well run all this time to sort of keep itself going. But I really would like to know more about them.
The thing that's really curious to me about this is that alongside, like, look, you hear that, like, QA is taking heavy cuts, and that's not surprising. QA always takes the brunt of these first. But the company's CEO also left as part of this. And they're very, they're saying this was an amicable departure. But you do wonder, it's not often you see a bunch of firings within a company all at once, and also the CEO goes. And I'm curious what's going on there.
It's not something you see much anymore. You used to see it more.
Yeah.
And not necessarily in the games business, but in other industries. But now we have thoroughly redefined the definition of what, ever since fucking Jack Welch, we've redefined what the responsibility of a CEO is. And so as long as they are paying out investor dividends to shareholders, they get to keep those jobs. But it used to be, if the health of the business was failing, the CEO might go.
Yeah, but the thing is in those situations, there would usually it would be explicitly said that's what's going on, is right. I am stepping down because I have failed to prevent job losses within the business. Right. That's not what's happening here. They're going, oh, he just coincidentally decided to amicably part ways with the company at the same time as all the layoffs. And it's weird.
Yeah, somebody shoot us an email.
Yeah. Now it's time to get on to PlayStation for this week, because we got some PlayStation stories before we finish up on Ubisoft. That's the little dessert at the end. So, first up, Naughty Dog has cut a bunch of developers' contracts early, making them, laying them off before the end of their, contractual, how long they're supposed to be working. This includes people in art, production, and, once again, QA testing. Mm-hmm. Now, this story is, it's another story of layoffs, but it's also important to bring up because there's some rumblings going around that maybe some of these people are not being properly compensated for having been let go suddenly, and that's going to be a thing to keep an eye on. But things we do know, according to the Kotaku article that sort of reported on this, Naughty Dog is cutting contracts short for outsourced developers. Sources say no severance pay is being given to those laid off. Both remaining employees and laid-off developers are allegedly, and I quote, being pressured to keep the news quiet. Which is fucking shitty, because
they have to find a job.
Yeah, anytime you see these layoffs happen, the only way people get back into employment quickly, particularly if there's no fucking severance, is to go, I and other people from this company have been laid off. It's a company you've heard of. We're looking for work. Can you help?
Yeah.
That's usually the thing you have to do when you suddenly don't have work. And if these people were being given severance pay, they would have time to find another job. You can't not give them severance pay and also not let them talk about the fact they got laid off before the end of their contract without warning. They need to be able to find jobs.
Yep.
We got another PlayStation story, and it's a weird one. A company called Gaming Heads that makes video game character statues has claimed that it was told by Sony to destroy all of its licensed merchandise, including items already paid for but not yet shipped to customers.
This is so weird.
Yeah. So they posted an open letter to Sony on social media and their website, basically apologizing to customers for the situation and saying, this is PlayStation's decision, not ours. We don't know what's going on. They were told to destroy in-stock items, items ready to be shipped, items in production, items in development, from franchises including The Last of Us, God of War, Bloodborne, and Ratchet & Clank. They have been making stuff based on PlayStation properties for over a decade, apparently, and they're just kind of unsure what's going on. And Sony has said nothing.
This whole thing feels weird to me.
Yeah.
I want to know what Sony has to say about this, because this is so out of left field and such strange behavior. The idea that they aren't allowed to fulfill existing orders, I want to hear the other side of this, because that's just not something that happens.
Yeah, and the thing that's weird about it is, this is a pretty big accusation to throw PlayStation's way, and we've been, 5 days? Radio silence? Not even so much as we believe the situation is being mischaracterized and will, share more going forward. They've just stone-faced this.
I want to know. I want to know more. I want to know more about this before I formulate any sort of thought or opinion on it. But it is definitely a strange situation.
Yeah. And last up, and this is an important one to bring up. This broke literally the minutes before we recorded today. 5 former Ubisoft executives have been arrested after a sexual harassment investigation. French newspaper Libération reported that yesterday 3 arrests were made and 2 further people were put in custody today, which is Thursday the 4th. This follows a year-long investigation into sexual assault and harassment within the company. It feels important to note that a lot of people have pushed back against the, like, continuing to rail against the, like, about the Ubisoft story, because going, well, no arrests happened, so clearly no crimes happened. And sometimes you've got to spend a while fucking investigating shit.
For crying out loud, we are only now starting to get around to people that matter in the investigation of a riot that we all saw on television January 6th of 2021. Like,
yeah.
You cannot necessarily expect instant action, though we demand it.
Yeah. So, a bit of information on some of the people who have been arrested or put into custody. Former Chief Creative Officer Serge Hascoët and ex-VP of Editorial and Creative Services Tommy Francois, both of whom had some pretty bad accusations against them. We don't have to, like...
Yeah, I don't think we need to belabor the accusations.
They're 2 of the known people who had pretty fucking bad accusations against them from multiple people. The arrests followed... we talked about this a while back, that the Solidaires Informatique Union made some complaints last year, and they, alongside 2 specific but unnamed victims back in the summer of 2021, brought these forward to the police, and it's sort of been going on in the background since then. I think it's worth noting that there is a quote from the plaintiff's lawyer, Maud Beckers, that says, "The case goes beyond individual behaviour and reveals systemic sexual violence." Which is kind of the problem, is that this is not just about these 5 people. This is arrests happening and seeking to address the fact that there is systemic criminal behaviour happening within Ubisoft. So, yeah, this is going to be rough for all, for the victims involved, but I hope that they get some closure.
I hope that the victims get what they need out of this, whatever that is. I don't have any faith in police, especially French police, but we'll see how it goes, and hopefully justice can be served in some fashion.
Yeah. If nothing else, it's something to point to the next time someone says, "Oh, that Ubisoft stuff was overblown. Like, if crimes happened, someone would have gone to the police." People have gone to the police.
Yep.
Shit's going on with it. So, yeah, we are continuing the slow road of digging through years of abuse at Ubisoft, and we will see if anything comes of any of it. But yeah, there we go.
There we go.
That's
we did it.
We came out the other side. We did it.
Yay. Well, Laura, now that we are on the other side, what could we see of yours out there on this side of that side?
Oh, well, there's a bunch of stuff. I can't really tell you a lot of what's coming, but I can tell you that whatever it is that's coming will be found at Laura K. Buzz pretty much everywhere. I've got that good unified branding. Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Patreon, that's the one that pays the bills. As little as $1 a month over there really does mean that I can do the stuff that I do. Blue Sky, Mastodon, all the places. Go check out my full accessibility review of Forza Motorsport. It is up on youtube.com/LauraKBuzz. It's nearly 20 minutes long of, like, really digging into what that game does, and I'm super proud of it. Look out for some big accessibility episodes coming in the coming weeks. I've got some real big projects in the works at the second, so look forward to those. Also, Stories of Autistic Joy. It's a book. It's coming out on October 19th. That's like 2 weeks away. What about you, Conrad? Where are you on the internet?
You can find me at Conrad Zimmerman on Instagram and Blue Sky. You can hang out with me on Twitch at twitch.tv/thatConradZimmerman, where I'm painting minis and playing games and hanging out, and it's usually a pretty chill time. You can buy anti-capitalist propaganda and licensed Jimquisition merchandise at mercenarycreative.com. And everything that I do online gets supported through Patreon at patreon.com/fistshark, just like a certain James Stephanie Sterling, who, of course, has already left. But do go check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Jimquisition, and reviews and other podcasts and other stuff all getting supported through there. They already said wrestling dates, so I think we're good on that. Yeah. So I guess we'll see you all next week.
I mean, we're just as we slide out the door, more news of layoffs happened literally as we were doing the outro. Twitch is having layoffs too. Well, on that note, off we go.
Goodbye. Bye.